Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Leadership Lunch Chat with myself and Jen Wilson, where we get together each week to just debrief on the things that have happened over the week, big observations both of us have had. And what we're going to talk about today is engage. So we just came off of last week at the conference, and there were a lot of different announcements and events as well, and just observations that not only we've had, but maybe have heard others as well. So, Jen, did you want to start today?
Sure. I guess my number one takeaway is always, wow, I'm so glad I didn't miss that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so good to reconnect with all my friends and to meet some people that I might have been interacting with digitally. And it's such a good sort of meeting place, because there are just so many people. I don't know what the official count turns out to be, but probably 4,500 or so attendees.
Mm-hmm.
Before you think about sponsors and vendors and such. I don't know what the real numbers are, but it's around 5,000. And just so it's a who's who, and it's good to reconnect. Second, it is a news. It's like attending 5 days of news or 5 days of news and education or something like that. And, it's a little bit, it's certainly less stressful than attending 5 days of 24/7 live streaming political commercial news. It's like cool stuff happening in our profession, big ideas to think about. And there were a bunch. The keynote speakers, had a number of big, important messages for us, like perseverance, and you know, um, being different, and pursuing dreams despite limitations or perceived real hardships. Digging in and being unstoppable anyway, things like that. So that's always pleasant to be reminded, recentered on those kinds of ideas. But lots of announcements too. I felt really blessed to be there.
Yeah. And we talk about it a lot on here is how important it is to have community and community inside where you work, but also outside of where you work as well, of just level setting with people and being able to share. And I think a lot of the learning happens outside of sessions, just being able to network and catch up with people. I know one of the themes, just going back to the keynote, of being unstoppable or not seeing limits. I think, I also took away from that. And so many times, this has either happened in my own life, your own life, or other people's stories, is when people tell you that something's not possible. And, uh, and that comes from their own frame of reference. And so when they do that, the power of those words can affect somebody else. And when the power of that, of flipping it and actually reaching out to someone or helping someone, and the stories that I do on my podcast, so many of these stories are about that someone actually said the right thing at the right time. It was a passing, fleeting thing. That person may never know that you said that right thing or gave someone that idea that actually changed the course of their career or what they thought would be possible for them. And the same goes in reverse when we say things, when we've got so much transformation happening in this profession or what needs to happen. One of the big things was Jen talking about the MPAG report, which we can get into here. But there can be those same comments of what's not possible, or this is the way it's always been. And I hope that message really got through of the power of these words, because words are energy. And when we are saying the right words, when it's needed, even when we don't know the answer, it propels transformation and it brings us all together in a joint effort that we don't know all the answers. We don't know until we try it and what we're going to get into and then what the changes may be. But if we are supportive in what we are saying and constructive, because there's always, constructive criticism or comments that can be helpful. But when they're said in a way that there's just no way, you look at some of what we saw with the keynote speakers of seeing, the first woman race car driver and, a man that can do unbelievable mountain climbing and canoeing, being blind. So it is possible. There is no belief system that should be getting in the way of that. And that is, we are going through this next phase of this profession blind. We don't know what this looks like. And so it's really important that we have that opportunity to really support each other and be energized by one another in that transformation.
Oh man, I love all that. Like the word that keeps going through my head while you were talking is the word encourager.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you an encourager or are you a discourager? Are you full of possibility or full of cynicism?
Mm-hmm.
Like who are you being? And who are you being not just for yourself and for your team, but for others? And how much like throwaway negativity are you tossing out verbally or in writing and posts that are discouraging others?
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, like the talent pipeline discussion that we've been having and will continue to have, and the project that I've been working on facilitating the National Pipeline Advisory Group, we sort of had the unveiling in the last month, let's say. The draft report's out. It'll comments for that will go off July 1st. We'll put the the link to that so you could read it and comment in chat. But people are like, what will change? That's not possible. This stuff has been around forever. We've always had talent problems. Nothing's going to solve it. There's all this cynicism in the conversation. And, to NPAG, to my 22 stakeholders who have studied the heck out of it and talked about it and faced all that cynicism, we have all kinds of hope and possibility. We believe change can happen. We can see the changes. We've articulated them in that report. Mm-hmm. We believe that there's enough energy right now around this and enough commitment and enough next gen willpower that this is going to be a game-changing, pivotal moment for our profession related to attracting talent and retaining them and creating a different story for our profession that's one where our jobs give us joy and where we're working on things that we love and where we're managing workflow so it's not managing us.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible, and yesterday, I think it was yesterday, it could have been the day before, I'm sorry, it could be blurry for me, but Ernst & Young just announced that they are putting $1 billion into salaries and technology in an effort to attract more people to the accounting profession. And, like I felt a little bit like crying, like I just was like, thank you. Thank you to them. Thank you to the universe, because there's an energy. You've talked about words or energy. There's an energy that we collectively as a profession can create, a hopefulness, a possibility that, we could drive change. We can.
Yes.
We don't have to accept how it always was or how it is right now. We just don't have to. And it's sort of like, instead of sitting around and poking at each other, arguing, mm-hmm. Whatever, why don't we just pull together and drive change? And when we do that, anything's possible.
Well, and to that extent, Ernst & Young didn't look side by side and say, what is Deloitte doing? What is KPMG? They looked inside and said, what can we do? Right. And that is what this is going to take. It's not being a naysayer. It's like, what in my control can I do and I affect? And there's so many conversations right now that I'm in, in our busy travel season, where all the time I'm catching it and just enlightening everyone on the words that they're saying, because I don't think we even realize it sometimes, right? And there is power right within our jobs to make change. We don't have to put money into it. We just have to change our expectations, our perceptions of others, and
and our language.
And our language, right? But that perception we have is not the truth. That is our perception. And each person's perception, we have to be open to learning what that is instead of shutting it down because it's different. And right within our firms and our organizations, that is happening every day. And so if we can just open ourselves up for one day, and then the next day, and then the next day, but just take it one day at a time to notice when we shut down another person's perception or way that they think that might be different from our own, but instead step back a second and say, what would it be if we did accept that, if we did change that? What would it take? What would we have to do? And some things are little changes and some things are big changes, but it's not shutting down the conversation, and it's not making fun of the conversation behind closed doors. It's that we are truly open to hearing things in a different way than we've ever heard it before. And we can each take personal responsibility in doing that.
Yes. And that's what innovation's all about, right? I mean, you just defined a whole bunch of core constructs of true innovation and creativity. Can't have it if we have naysayers and we don't have a willingness to listen to outer realm possibilities. And if we're, triangulating and bad mouthing and politicizing stuff, you don't have creativity and innovation. And there isn't a profession or industry right now or trade that gets to get by without innovation and without change, right? In this marketplace at this time in our country's history, with the current demographics and what's happening with technology and a bunch of other market influences.
And offshoring.
Yeah. There's so many influences, right? That we cannot sit still. Some people think, well, man, I don't want to do this. I'll just sell this to someone else. And that's a possibility. I'm going to sell this thing. They can change it. And, I don't know what to say about that, but I don't know that whoever's buying all this stuff is going to be able to buy it all. There's got to be a level of independent entrepreneurialism that ends up surfacing from the smaller and mid-sized firms where they're going to stay independent and make something happen. And those that do sell or take on private equity, they're going to have to drive change too. I mean, there's not a choice in this. We all have to change. So sort of accepting that, stop resisting it, start innovating and generating possibility, that's where it's at. And this report that we wrote, while it's talent focused, it points to other things too. It points to these issues of non-traditional talent and technology and the role of technology in all of this. It points to demographics. It points to what's happening with PE and M&A. So it's sort of a good landscape review. If you have a chance to read it, I'd encourage you because it will help you with your strategies and innovation. It will seed ideas. And I loved what you said earlier, Amy, we can't wait for anyone else. None of us can wait for someone else to solve this for us. Individually, I have to generate and solve. And then my organization or my team or my department, we have to solve there too. We have to change there, innovate there also, and not wait for the firm as a whole, or not wait for, and one of the coolest ways to drive change is that listening and learning from others, ask your next gen, ask your clients, and listen. Don't argue with what they say, and don't set up the questions so that they will bias your learning, which is hard, and certainly I've been facilitating with a group of very bright people, listening and learning and hearing stuff we don't want to hear, but hearing stuff that is so important and being able to factor it in and weave it in and identify where there is data to prove that those are trends or commonalities or real consistent themes. That's what you have to do in your practice. And that's what we have to do individually too. It's like, if I want to drive change in the way my life is right now, because I know there are some people out there who are like, wow, is this what it was? Is this what I thought it was going to be? And if the answer is no, and it's not, you're not happy, what can you change?
Mm-hmm. Well, and you had a great part in that report the team did about individual things that you can do. If you can't come up with it on your own, they created a whole list of picking some things that you can do in your own life to shift things. I think, what's so important, and I know you deal with it all the time, but is listening to your manager level. For me, there's just this call out into the world that this is your bench strength. And we can't just assume what they're going through because you did that work 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. Every year the work is different. Every year the people working on that work is different. And what it takes to get it done and making sure that that team is not overwhelmed is really, really important. And then giving that, when we talk about accountability and trying to figure out what you can do, what you can control, are you empowering the people around you to try and innovate new things? Like, what can they do on the audit? What can they do on the tax return? What can they do when they're providing advice that might shift the feeling of helplessness, of not having any control over what their future looks like or their day looks like, because there's not an openness for the discussion. And so if it really takes leading from the top and shifting that perspective and being open to really hearing what is going on. And when I say hearing, it also means seeing and taking in body language and taking in even if they're saying all the right words, but they look exhausted and they look overwhelmed. When do you pull people aside and say, what's going on? How you doing? Just having a conversation that isn't client focused, so that you can change this paradigm, because that is our future right now. And those are the people that are going to help this next generation. And if we don't help them, there's no one to help the others.
And it's an area, anywhere from 3 to 7 or 8 years of experience that's woefully lacking because we already bled a decent number of them out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I have a dream that not only will we help the ones that are still here have a better, experience, that they love their work, that we could get them to love their work, not just survive their work, love their work, but also that we could attract people back.
Mm-hmm.
That we could demonstrate such change that people would come back. They would think, it isn't like it was. And so in order to do that, we really do have to get our people. One of the things I fear, it's such a worry word. I always have stuff. I'm afraid that, and one of them is, I'm afraid that, that these folks don't believe that we're committed to change, so they won't tell us. You said, even if they say everything's fine, but they don't look fine, and that's a perfect reflection of this thing that we see sometimes in the middle there of like trying to buck up or be brave or chin up or inauthentic toughness in the face of being like, oh, this thing's killing me. And when one of our themes in the talent pipeline strategy is tell a better story. Well, we don't want people to tell a fakey story,
Right.
but we don't want them to tell the story at the kitchen table. This job is killing me.
Right.
If that's true, we need to work on that. Pretty much 911. And I don't hear that all the time, but I
Right.
do hear
A
it.
lot. We both hear, and that's the thing, listening to outside people like us that are inside having personal conversations that maybe you would never have. This is really important. And I do want to separate two things, because one thing you said was that whether I like my work or not, I think there's a difference between liking the work or wanting to do the work versus the culture that's created in that workplace.
Yes.
I think everybody goes into this work very purpose driven. They're in it either because they're really good at it and it came naturally to them, or they're truly impacted by what accounting does for the world, right? And it is truly the language of business. And we help so many people be able to thrive or not get into trouble, look future, help them make decisions they can never make. So I feel like a lot of people have to be reminded why they even got into it, only because they've been overwhelmed or, in the process. And so we've got to get back to that, like why we got in this in the first place, the energy of that. And then how do we create an environment that promotes that energy and we don't forget about the purpose that we have in doing this work so that we can make the shift. And that is something each person can do without anyone telling them to do it, and just take personal responsibility in that process and transformation.
Yes. And there are experts to help with culture.
Mm-hmm.
There are experts to help. Sometimes culture feels like black box. How do I start addressing toxicity or culture? Because you're right, how it feels to work here and the work itself could,
Mm-hmm.
might not be the work that's wearing me out.
Yeah.
The people around me that are
and the volume of it. Yeah.
And the intentionality of
Mm-hmm.
how we're running this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I love that distinction, and I do think we really need to make it. And these are the kind of conversations I didn't get to hang out with Amy as much as I wanted to. We were so stinking busy, but we did get a little pool time. But I know we both hung out with a lot of people through the course of that 4 or 5 days. And these are the depth of conversations we need to be having with the different
Mm-hmm.
people in the profession from different angles, vendors and sponsors and education providers and, firm leaders, of course, and then those within the firms and finance departments, and just, as many educators, as many different angles as we could take, processing these ideas and saying, how can we make this better and what could we do to change it and shift it? And the NPEG report has a bunch of ideas for employers. Strongly recommend reading them. And they're not all the ideas ever. And you're doing some of them, as we're all doing some of them as employers, but we can do more. And, I just think that, I was thinking about like Engage, that conference with all the different communities it brings. It's like where communities collide.
Mm-hmm.
And was such a great place to have discussions from different perspectives and hear different voices, ideas, viewpoints, angles from different corners. I just valued it so much. I wished it could have been, like I could structure it some way that it wasn't all at once, like 16 hours a day, every day, 4 days. Instead, it was more like I could get a couple hours here or there every week. Maybe it would be easier to take the takeaways and implement them. But man, what a great experience.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate everything that your group has done, and just, want to thank everyone for being a part of this. When Jen and I have these talks, feel free to submit your suggestions that you would like to hear on these sessions. And just want to close out and just remember the energy you create for yourself is contagious. And just remember that as you walk into your day. Thank you all. Have a great weekend. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.